Good job, Akili.
Water!
Of course! You need to water.
Two surveys, one looking at the impact of COVID-19 among the employers in Kenya, and the other looking at the impact of COVID-19 among the small businesses in the least developed countries in Africa. The employers in Kenya highlighted three areas that they have been adversely affected. One is the finance and cash flows, and then the second one is the supply chains, and then the other one is operations. These areas remain critical for the speed recovery of enterprises. And therefore, the enterprises need to be helped in these three areas. We need innovative solutions, for example, IT-based solutions that link access to credit and loans repayment of business to business cash flow. We need regulations that will help establish and improve the regional and continental supply chains. And lastly, skills and attitudes to spur productivity in the new normal that we are now having. The workplace is no longer the same. People's bedrooms are now their offices. Remote working and working from home and virtual offices are now becoming the new normal. What we need to do for us to support this, what do we need to do for us to support this new normal? In the new emerging normal, the employers are looking at the control and responsibilities, are losing control and responsibility of the workers' working space, because the working space and the workplace is no longer what we had pre-COVID. And as the worker may be working from home. What legislative reforms do we need to support both the employers and the workers to be more productive and efficient in their engagement? Ladies and gentlemen, the other survey that on the state of small businesses in the least developed countries, which Business Africa did in collaboration with the United Nations Capital Development Fund, showed that in September,
This week on Lit 360.
Yesu anaweza kuokoa. Aliniokoa mimi, nilikuwa mgenge.
Nitakupa jamii, ukinijali. Mimi hapa.
The chairman Diogari Topo Gaubina reporting for duty for the Abraham. We're chilling here with a lot of amazing people, superstars. We have artists here We have idlers.
Istiqbal is now in Kenya. We are the voice for quality, colorful, innovative, and functional home furniture with presence in 92 countries worldwide. Celebrate our end-year sale of 50% off.
Takes more determination.
Hakuna.
Nilikuwa kilio changu ni watoto wanapata shida chakula. Lakini nimeona Kenya yetu watu wamenishika mkono.
Finding real solutions takes more understanding.
Shortage of teachers, lack of textbooks.
Afadhali mtoto awe chini ya miti badala ya awe na chupa ya glue kwa mapua.
And NTV investigates leads to impact.
This building here has got its fair share of criminals.
Who are these COVID billionaires?
Corruption related to PPE, it's actually a murder.
So these are patients with cerebral palsy.
From what I saw being aired in NTV, it really broke my heart.
NTV, stories that impact you.
Akili, 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 akili. Will you wash your hands with me? I want to wash my hands with you. Come on, I will show you what to do. Wash your hands in clean water. Wash your hands, wet them with the water. Wash your hands, now add some soap. Scrub your hands in the soap and water. Scrub above and below between the fingers too. Scrub under your nails and scrub a dub-a-doo. Rinse your hands in water. Rinse them clean, rinse away the soap. Dry your hands and go.
Akili, why do we wash our hands?
To wash away the germs.
Akili, what are germs?
They're like tiny little bugs on your hands and they can make you sick.
But I don't see any germs on my hand.
That's because they're so tiny that you can't even see them.
Oh wow! I want to wash the germs away. Will you wash your hands with me, Akili?
Of course!
Fact finder from the BBC. More Africans are going online, but how do they access information with low speeds and internet shutdowns? A Kenyan MP wants to police Facebook and WhatsApp groups due to offensive content online. So, is your phone listening to you? Myth or fact? We'll find out.
What a relief! Thank you, Gold Crown. If regular milk makes you feel uncomfortable, try Gold Crown lactose-free milk. Milk that loves you.
Kalasha International TV and Film Awards, an initiative of the Kenya Film Commission that seeks to recognize talent in the film and TV industry, celebrates 10 years of awarding excellence. The nominees for this year's awards will be unveiled on Wednesday, 18th November 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Lines will be open for public voting via the StarTimes On app between 19th November and 3rd December 2020. Catch the unveiling ceremony live on NTV this Wednesday from 7:30 p.m. Kenya Film Commission. Film Kenya. Capture Africa.
Jumatano hii kwenye kigoda chako. Wakati mizani ya haki inawekwa kwenye mizani, bila shaka kuna jambo.
Kwa hivyo nimetoa idhini ya kwamba wakamatwe na waletwe mara moja kotini.
Je, kama takamata za Ijumaa za washukiwa wa ufisadi zilikwenda wapi?
Ambia huyu jamaa.
Je, udugu
This is NTV.
Place is essentially going to answer just about two questions and is going to also make it very brief. Number one is, what is the observed impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the labor movement across the world and in Africa as well? That impact is the one thing that is the most important, because then we will know how to counter it. At the same time, COVID-19 has brought about significant disruptions and changes at the workplace. The work of the future is significantly different from pre-COVID work. What are trade unions doing to promote harmonious and productive industrial relations in the emerging new normal? Dr. Francis Atuoli, welcome so much, and the floor is yours now.
Good morning to everyone. Because of some reasons, Brother Dr. Francis is not able to join us this morning, but I'd like to read his speech that was prepared, was about to make a presentation to the panelists and the viewers for this conference. So I'll go through the speech, but let me first thank the organizer of this virtual conference, the Federation of Kenyan Employers, for the invitation, and secondly, for the topics that are presented before the panelists. I believe that during the 3 days of this conference, the invited guests and panelists, who I must say that are informed individuals on the subject matter, will be able to ventilate and help both employers and workers adopt more innovative, resilient, and futuristic models of work. On the issue of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the workers and the labor movement as a whole, for us in the labor movement, the impact of COVID-19 has been both positive and negative. I know you may be wondering how this has had a positive effect on the workers, but the truth of the matter is that COVID has had its own share of the positive opportunities and challenges to the working class. If you looked at it critically, you will discover even at your own place of work, there were more opportunities created by the COVID-19. The most obvious positive effect of COVID-19 on the labor movement was this pandemic brought to the fore the importance of trade unions. First, many employees and even some employers came to the full realization that it's important to organize themselves. Lack of organization among workers has caused massive job losses, however, and some extension of many jobs and companies. As a result of this, many workers, some who have lost jobs, while others who are still working but are not unionized, have gotten in touch with the trade unions to ask about the modalities of joining the trade union. And the reason being how to protect their jobs and where and was the memorandum of understanding to protect those jobs. On the other hand, employers who have been treating unions as enemies were calling to seek advice on what action they can take within the law that won't harm them and their workers. For instance, on the 30th April 2020, the Central Organization of Trade Unions Court of Kenya, together with the Ministry of Labour and the Federation of Kenyan Employers, entered into an MOU aimed at protecting workers from economic shock and also turning those fond of exploiting and such situation to throw workers out of employment. At the Kenya Convention of Kaja Workers Union, where I serve as the General Secretary, we entered into one with the Kenyan Employer Association on how to mitigate the situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. The trade unions and the employers agreed on a raft of measures to be taken in order to ensure employees belonging to unions in the sector will not be sacked or victimized. Many employers who were not able to meet their salary obligation and had employees who were unionized were advised to send their workers on leave as we hoped for the situation to stabilize instead of terminating their contracts. These two examples illustrate that the trade unions in Africa and throughout the world played a major role in protecting jobs and lives immediately after the COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Kenyan employers for the fantastic cooperation and support they have given to the workers and the labor movement in the country. Through the ability of the union to negotiate for better pay and conditions and defend workers' rights, many trade unions entered into agreements with employers to not only safeguard their jobs but also ensure that the workers are safe and their workplaces are safe from COVID-19. Secondly, observed impact of COVID-19 on the labor movement across Africa and the world is that many unions were also sent in distress following massive job losses and exploitation from some employers. As you may be aware, many unions depend on the dues from their members to run their day-to-day activities and obligations, but this has been the biggest challenge because of the pandemic. Massive job losses directly affected the sustainability and thus the independence of the unions. There is therefore need for the government to have deliberate measures targeting both formal and informal sectors in an attempt to promote decent work among the working people. This pandemic has also illustrated to us that the world of work has changed for now and requires to work hard to construct the road to normalcy. It's now incumbent upon us as the labor movement to define the working conditions for this new road to normalcy. On the question of what role trade unions are playing to promote harmonious and productive industrial relations in the emerging new challenges, I'd like to make the following observations. One, even before COVID-19, the future of work was positively shaping up. Number second, technology was proving to be the new approach in the world of work, as we had known it by introducing smart economy, digital economy, and blue economy, and work being automated with a lot of requirement to enable workers to adapt to the new technological changes and remain relevant to their unions as members and modern service providers. Then the last one, we believe that offering courses to workers will go a long way in promoting a harmonious working relationship moving into the future. And this will be to the benefit of not only workers, but also the employers and the enterprises. Because at the end of the day, it's important to be afloat and sustain the working people. I thank you. Those are the comments from Brother Dr. Franz Atwell.
Baraza, that's Mr. Peter Baraza speaking on behalf of Dr. Francis Atwoli, who couldn't join us today. He's the Secretary General, Central Organization of Trade Unions. Several issues have come out. He says that it is both positive and negative, the impact of COVID-19 and the use of technology, but it is time that the government deliberates on the measures to cushion employees. And at the same time, it is time for the trade unions to define the working conditions for the employees as well. Without any further ado, I'd also like to welcome Mr. Roberto Suarez. He's the Secretary General, International Organization of Employers. He's joining us virtually. The floor is yours, sir.
First, I can be heard properly? Yes. Okay, good. You're clear. Go ahead. Thank you so much. Good morning from Geneva. Good morning. Thank you for this invitation. Mr. President Abel Olaka, I was going also to refer to our dear Jacqueline Mugu, Executive Director of Federation of Kenyan Employers. Last year I came physically to Kiev on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of the organization. This year is the 100th anniversary of IOE. Perhaps it's not the best year to celebrate an anniversary, but it's also a year of opportunities. And I would like also to convey you some message regarding the volatile, unpredictable, and an ambiguous future, as you referred in the concept note that you gave to us. We keep saying that never before a crisis has been so global. I mean, since the Second World War, we have not witnessed a crisis that is affecting all the regions of the world, and also the African region. Let me just remind that the first wave of the pandemic came to Africa from China through the beginning of trade channels and lower foreign direct investment. But also the second wave of the pandemic is also affecting especially African countries due to the lower demand from normally Europe with the lockdown and halt in tourism. But that now also finally a third wave will come or is coming because of the shock on the internal demand and the slowdown of infra-Africa trade, which is also foreseen, it's also projecting a future, especially next year, which is far away from optimal. Even we have been qualifying this future as disastrous to some extent. But let me also say that there is some profound transformations in the world of work that will remain beyond the pandemic. No CEO of a company, no human resources manager would have been able to change from one day to the other the culture of the workplace as this pandemic has undertaken. You refer to data of remote work. In many countries, especially in some specific sectors, remote work has affected more than 50% of the workforce, especially, of course, in the formal sector. But what is also more interesting is that recent projections in many countries, also in the formal sector, foresee a future in which 20 to 30% of the current workers will remain as permanent remote workers in a way or in another, in a multiple day a week basis. This has consequences which go beyond the workplace. Of course, the concept of workplace is changing, but also the way we work is also changing, because working from the distance means also working with more autonomy, working also with a new concept of productivity, and it's also affecting the concept of working time, which is more linked not so much of the number of hours that I have been working, but the results, the objectives that I am fulfilling. Of course, there are important challenges related to the disconnection. They need also to disconnect, which is a debate that is coming within the social dialogue forum. A discussion that we had precisely last year with the occasion of the centenary of the ILO and the Future of Work Centenary Declaration. But let me also say and underline how business are changing. And last year when I went to Mombasa with you, we discussed and we had a very interesting interaction on the future of business. Globally speaking, according to a recent survey of McKinsey, the digital interaction with customers in many economies have increased from 36% in 2019 to 58% in 2020. In some countries, this figure goes up to 65, even 70%. Also, products and services that can be considered now total or partially digitalized have changed from 30% in many economies to 60% this year. That says a lot of what we are witnessing. Let me also remind that, as you have already underlined and highlighted, that has a lot to do with skills and skills anticipation. Last year, at the end of last year, we made a survey with critical players, but also with a group of companies, a very significant group of companies in developed and developing economies, precisely to better understand how they are anticipating the skills challenges. And one of the main findings, and I have to say that this survey was undertaken by IOE and ILO through ACTEMP, the unit in ILO that takes care of strengthening capacity of employees organizations. So this survey reflects that most than 60% or 70% of executives of companies that we have interviewed refer to a cycle of 3 years' time in skills anticipation. Let me explain that further. These executive directors stated that they are looking for quite different skills in new recruits than 3 years ago. This cycle of 3 years was much longer some time ago. It was of 5 years or 6 years. Now, the change of skills comes within a 3-year cycle. Also, more than 50 or 60% of executives in many countries, and we had referred to countries in Africa, but also in Latin America, Asia, Europe, more than 60% agreed in more or less similar proportion that is becoming harder to recruit people with the skills needed. So all that has to do with the scenario that we have in front of us. We are very much aware, and some of you have referred to that Kenya's economy contracted for the first time in almost 12 years in the second quarter as the impact of the coronavirus pandemic battered key sector. We are also aware that the coronavirus pandemic is expected to have significant negative impact for 2022. at the end of the year, and the GDP growth is estimated to be just at 1.5%, which is low for your standards. And that's affecting especially some population, and I have to highlight the gender aspect, because women and girls are the ones that are in those sectors like wholesale, retail, education, more affected, and also in the highly informal economy. I want to stress again that our main ambition as IOE, one of our main ambitions as IOE, International Organization of Employers, is to find new ways to tackle informality and how to promote transitions toward formality, because that will be the key for success in integrating new population in the labor market. But let me also give you hints of hope regarding precisely the digital drive that we are witnessing. The digital economy is playing already a key role in Kenya, and we know how advanced Kenya is in comparison with other African countries. And there are opportunities rising already in sectors of digital and digital deliverable services. E-commerce is taking off with an increasing demand for fast-moving consumer goods, entertainment, electronic, and productivity tools. However, we also have to understand that connectivity is key. Infrastructure, investment of infrastructure is also key. Digital skills are becoming critical. And we see that even though there is a high percentage of companies, normally the large ones, that use cloud computing, already we have a large percentage of firms in Kenya, but in other countries, that are not digitally oriented. As for the future, I cannot stress more how important is social dialogue, and it's really very reassuring to see the level of dialogue that exists in Kenya and the degree of reciprocity and mutual conversations that you have been able to undertake during this period in the country within workers' organizations, and the presence and the involvement of the workers' organizations is also a proof of that. I also want to underline and stress that never before, and this is one of the key messages that we are identifying at global level, partnership with the private sector have been so important. We had with us, with the occasion of the centenary of IOE, the Secretary General of United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. And he very much expressed to us advance is the private sector in finding innovative solutions, strengthening creativeness, and how important is that this innovation, this creativeness on many sectors is linked to good and efficient partnerships, which is not the case in many countries. But this also applies also to the partnerships with educational systems, which are far away from what is expected, to the employment policies, which are not efficient and are not taking very often the digital requirements, the digital drive, and the productivity agenda. IOE is pushing hard for productivity as a key driver of new policies. But this also affects the employers' organizations. IOE has been transforming itself during this pandemic enormously, and I'm sure that FGE has also been transforming itself. This means also to identify new services to our members. Services that have to do with new forms of training, new forms of creating business. The more we enter into this dynamic, the better we'll be positioned to become resilient, which is at the end the theme of this conversation. Final message to all of you, please remain committed to IOE. We are very proud of being an organization which gathers independent, strong and representative national organizations. Having you with us is a question of pride, but it's a question of efficiency. We say that we are a balanced and powerful voice of business because of your active involvement. Thank you very much for listening to me.
So much. That's Mr. Roberto Suarez, live from Geneva. He's the Secretary General, International Organizations of Employers, and he brings in several key issues. He says that never before has a crisis been so global, and that is true. Between 20 to 30% of the current workers will remain as remote workers henceforth. What does that mean for wages? Future of business. Modern digital interaction has increased from 36% in 2019 to 58% in 2020. In some countries, it's even up to 65%. With that comes challenges of connectivity, what the wage bill will look like, skill set for survival. In fact, executive directors are saying now they need to shift people within 3 years. They're now looking for different skill sets. That's 50 to 60% of the executive directors. What then does that mean for the future of the workforce? If you have to be innovative enough to switch your skill sets every 3 years, what does that mean for the future of work? This is why we're having this conversation today on building resilient enterprises, creating wealth and jobs on this Employers Annual Conference 2020. We'd like to hear your views as well at FKE Kenya. That's the Twitter handle, hashtag Employers Conference 2020. That is where we're having this conversation. Without any further ado, let me welcome Dr. Habil Olaka, FKE National President, to also make his remarks. Dr. Habil.
Thank you, Trevor. Let me start by recognizing the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, Honorable Simon Chelugui, the Cabinet Secretary for ICT, Honorable Joe Mucheru, the IOE Secretary General, Mr. Roberto Suarez, and the Secretary General for COTU Kenya, Dr. Francis Atwoli, the Executive Director for FKE, and the Secretary General, Business Africa, Ms. Jacqueline Mugo, the FKE Management Board, leaders of employers organizations from across Africa, industry leaders and other policymakers present, our development partners, members of the Federation of Kenya Employers, and all delegates present. Good morning. I'm indeed delighted to host this annual Employers Conference. The conference gives us an opportunity to take stock of the environment you are working in, celebrate the achievements, identify the challenges, and chart a way forward for the employment and labor sector, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa. This conference is held at the backdrop of a very challenging time. We are all aware we are in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic, which is both a health and an economic crisis. From the day the first case of COVID-19 infection was announced, we have seen 53.3 million contracted, 34.4 million recover from it, and 1.3 million deaths from it worldwide. In Kenya, we have had about 70,000 COVID-19 positive cases, of which about 45,000 recovered and 1,250 deaths. Our way of life has never been affected as COVID has. I'm persuaded to conclude that we may never return to the way of life and operations that existed pre-COVID-19. The fear of COVID-19 is real. We continue to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I said earlier that COVID-19 pandemic is also an economic crisis. The measures put in place by authorities to contain the spread of COVID-19 infections have had a far-reaching impact on business and livelihoods. The necessary measures recommended for containing lockdowns, travel restrictions, social distancing, and minimizing of physical contacts with surfaces have had a great adverse impact on businesses and incomes of households. Ladies and gentlemen, the IMF in its October 2020 growth projections indicated that the global economy is going to shrink by some 4.4% in 2020. Advanced economies will experience a growth decline of 5.8%, and emerging markets and developing economies will decline by 3.3%. Regional projections show that growth will decline by 8.3% in the Euro area, 8.1% in Latin America and the Caribbean, 4.3% in the United States, 4.1% in the Middle East and Central Asia, 3% in Sub-Saharan Africa, and 1.7% in emerging and developing Asia. So 2020 is indeed a difficult year. To put into perspective the challenges of 2020, let us look at the labor market and social indicators. The ILO estimates the working hour losses equivalent to 17.3%, that is 495 million full-time jobs. Lower middle income countries, Kenya included, are hardest hit, having experienced an estimated decline in working hours of 23.3%, which is 240 million full-time employment jobs in the second quarter of the year. 10.7% loss in the labor income during the first 3 quarters, which translates to some $3.5 trillion, or about 5.5% of the global GDP. The labor income losses are highest in middle-income countries, reaching 15.1%, in lower middle-income countries, and 11.4% in upper middle-income countries. There is 94% overall share of workers experienced workplace closures. And the story is the same in Kenya. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics revealed that 1.7 million jobs were lost in Kenya in the 4 months when the measures to contain the spread of COVID-19 infections were in place. The Ministry of Labor Statistics shows declared redundancies reached 230,000 from March to October 2020. The Federation survey amongst its members revealed that 8.3% of jobs were lost amongst its members. How big is this loss to Kenya? All the formal jobs created in the last 5 years have been wiped off by this COVID-19 pandemic. Distinguished delegates, although the situation is gloomy, it's not devastating as it looks. There is underlying emerging phenomenon that gives hope. IMF Growth Projections for 2021 shows the economies are likely to bounce back, with global economy growing at 5.2%, advanced economies 3.9%, and emerging markets and developing economies at 6%. At regional level, emerging and developing Asia is projected to lead in growth at 8%, followed by the Euro area at 5.2%, then Latin America and the Caribbean at 3.6%, Sub-Saharan Africa and the United States will each grow at 3.1%, and the Middle East and Central Asia at 3%. Another important factor is that there is a changing mindset at all levels, and adoption and use of technology is no longer a choice. It is a must. The future of work we used to talk about is here with us. Automation, mechanization, artificial intelligence, remote working, and other forms of work and operations that we either thought are non-standard or are in the future are now here with us and are becoming the norm. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenge is for us to rise to the occasion and provide a proper framework for Kenya and Africa to thrive in the emerging new normal. This conference gives us the opportunity to put together our thinking, to share our collective experience, and bring in our ingenuity and innovativeness to meet the challenges of our days. Unprecedented challenges call for unprecedented solutions. I'm confident that we shall live to the occasion and share knowledge that will both help the industry leaders navigate the volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous business environment, and also help build resilient enterprises that create wealth and jobs in Kenya and in Africa. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinguished honor to invite our Cabinet Secretary for Labor, Honorable Simon Chelugui, to address us. Thank you, and karibu sana, Bwana CS.
Very much. ICT, Youth and Innovation, Honorable John Sheru, Secretary General, International Organization of Employers, Mr. Roberto Suarez, Secretary General, Central Organization of Trade Union, Brother Dr. Francis Atwoli, FKE National President, Dr. Abi Lolaka, Executive Director, FKE, Mrs. Jacqueline Mugo, CEO, Federation of Uganda Employers, Mr. Douglas Opio, the Vice Chancellor, Strathmore University, Professor Vincent Ogutu, Chief Executive Officer, Digital Technobrain, Mr. Anand Mohan Nagotu, our facilitator, Trevor Ombicha, employers, partners, the fourth estate, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I take this opportunity to thank you all for finding time to attend this employers' annual virtual conference. I know we would have loved to meet physically, but because of the disruption that has been brought to our lives by coronavirus, we have to adapt to a new normal in our operations. This conference provides us an opportunity for sharing our experience and engage in discussions under the theme, Building Resilient Enterprises, Creating Wealth and Jobs. This conference will also be addressing topical and relevant thematic areas affecting enterprises, not only in Kenya, but globally, especially during this COVID-19 period. Every person that I meet believes that I have jobs that to give simply because I'm the Cabinet Secretary in charge of labor. But I'm therefore very happy to be addressing you because you have all the jobs and you are the ones who create jobs. My work and that of government at the large, government at large, is to create enabling environment so that you can make the money and create more jobs. Organization from time to time to contend with volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous environment, which generally destabilizes people, causes anxiety, and sap motivation, and frustrate career moves. It also consumes huge amounts of time and effort, hence increasing the chances of people making bad decisions or even paralyzing decision-making. VUCA environment also jeopardizes long-term projects, development, and innovations. It overwhelms individual and organization and takes toll on internal culture, besides making constant restraining and reshaping necessity. To overcome this kind of situation, it calls for business enterprises to reconsider the way the leadership and business operates. COVID-19 has presented itself as one such environment this year, and employers, as the business leaders, therefore need to appreciate this more than anybody else in their own organization and come up with deliberate measures to re-engineer their business to remain afloat. Ladies and gentlemen, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic has threatened the way of life for a large number of people globally. Many businesses worldwide have encountered losses which has threatened their operations and solvency, especially among smaller enterprises, and even by a large extent, the large enterprises. Employers and employees are already suffering immediate losses in terms of income and employment. This pandemic has affected not only the health of the workers, but also the number of jobs available. The uncertainty caused by the corona disease in various sectors of the economy has led business owners to introduce measures geared towards ensuring their business remain afloat. These measures have included delaying investments, purchase of goods and hiring of workers, salary cuts for employees, temporary layoffs, sending employees on indefinite unpaid leave, and declaring employees redundant. And I want to remember, just at the beginning of this pandemic, I want to pay special tribute to and kind regards to the leadership of both workers and employers. In the beginning, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, realizing the extent of this crisis, did mobilize both employer and employees. And I want to thank more specifically the Secretary General of Central Organization of Trade Union, Brother Francis Atuoli, and Sister Jacqueline Mugo, who came together and we signed an MOU, which the underlying message of that MOU was to foster dialogue, to engage, to talk to each other, and even went further and suspended the negotiation of new CBS. This has brought sanity, order in the labor and employer market, because this problem is beyond employers, it's beyond government, it's beyond employees. And realizing that we need to work as a team was very, very important. And I want to thank you most sincerely. And therefore, realizing the seriousness of this COVID pandemic, the Kenya government has introduced a raft of measures to contain its spread. These measures include the stay and work from home advice, the cessation of movement in and out of some high-risk areas, dusk to dawn curfew, travel restrictions, temporary closures of restaurants and bars, social distancing advice, wearing of masks, and regular washing of hands. These measures have significantly contained the spread of the pandemic, but have also led to an unintended outcome of job loss in Kenya labor market, especially in some key sectors of our economy. Ladies and gentlemen, in Kenya, the private sector employs and have significantly been affected by COVID-19, and has witnessed a large number of workers being sent home on unpaid leave for a number of months. This is especially common in manufacturing sector, which accounts for 15.9% of formal employment. Agriculture sector accounts for 14.4%, tourism, hotel, and accommodation at 13%, and education at 11.1%, all of which have registered significant job losses. In the informal sector, which is Kenya's largest employer, we have witnessed job losses, especially in economic sectors such as wholesale and retail trade, hotels and restaurants, which employs over 59.9% of employees. The small-scale manufacturing, 20.2%, community, social, and personal care services accounting for 9.7%, which includes saloons and barbershops, and transport sector at 3.1%. Therefore, the answer to the question on how COVID has affected our job market, I can safely say that COVID has had tremendous negative effect on employment. Today, close to 1.7 million Kenyans or employees have lost their livelihood, both in the informal and the informal sector. To mitigate the effects of the pandemic in the labor and employment sector in Kenya, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection has implemented a number of initiatives, which include that establishment of tripartite team in April 2020 that came up with initiatives to safeguard the interest of workers and employers in the country. One of the initiatives, as I mentioned earlier, is the signing of the MOU with the social partners, which laid emphasis on social dialogue and tripartite consultation. voluntary negotiations, review and variation of employment contracts, workplace safety and health, provision of PPEs and data collection for impact assessment. Ladies and gentlemen, looking beyond COVID-19 pandemic, the ministry has drawn recovery plan, which includes establishment of unemployment relief fund to cushion workers who lose their jobs. We are going to be conducting an impact assessment on the effect of COVID-19 pandemic on migrant workers and review of various legislations touching on employment and social protection. My ministry prepares quarterly job opportunity reports whose aim is to give picture of occupations that have high demand, the skills that are in high demand, the economic sectors that are growing, and new emerging occupations in the labor market. This information is important to various players in the labor market, such as students, parents, guardians, training institutions, policymakers, just but to mention a few. My ministry would really appreciate the support of employers in availing data on any vacancy that you declare so that it becomes easy to collect and collate information. Evidence from other jurisdictions that have shown that by reducing waste, organizations are in a position to improve their productivity of up to 35%. It is therefore my hope that you will make use of productivity and competitiveness center in my ministry to guide you in identifying various waste in our processes, and through productivity improvement practices, we create more value in your organization by employing simple productivity improvement tools such as the 5S, that is sort, set, shine, standardize, and sustain, a Kaizen, continuous improvement, and the BDCA quality improvement cycle of plan, do, check, action. As COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve, there's never been more pressing need for business to rethink and reconfigure their businesses in changing world. It is evidently time for business to focus their efforts in supporting their areas of business that will enable them to stabilize in the new environment and develop strategies for their next takeoff. This therefore calls for business to be more creative and innovative. This therefore also calls for, to survive the situation that business sometimes find themselves in, we need to counter volatility with vision, meet uncertainty with understanding, react to complexity with clarity, and fight ambiguity with agility. On the question of what government can do to support enterprises to recover and become more productive and resilient in emerging new form, normal following disruption of COVID-19, I wish to state as follows. Let me start by reiterating that I have said that there before that the role of government is to create an enabling environment, meaning that our aim is, as government, is to make sure that we create an environment that is attractive to start and sustain business so that private enterprises can thrive and create jobs. The government earlier this year announced an economic recovery stimulus package. In this package, the government committed to enhance SMEs liquidity by fast-tracking VAT refunds owed to businesses, payment of pending bills, providing seed capital to SMEs through credit guarantee scheme. Other intervention include manufacturing through purchase of locally manufactured products, temporary support to floriculture and horticultural producers to access international, also subsidizing farm inputs, grants to hotels to support renovations, among others. To create an enabling environment to create jobs, the government also has been heavily investing in provision of affordable and regular electricity, which drives production, support training of skilled workforce, and improvement of infrastructure to make it easy for quicker transport of goods, conducive taxation regime, easing up licensing requirement by reducing the number of licenses required to start a business. Other measures include increased internet connectivity, predictable interest rate regime, reliable and efficient legal system, adequate security and protection of industries from undue foreign competition. All these aim at creating an environment where employers create jobs for our Kenyan people. So as I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to build a framework that supports organization resilience and help business bounce back to external shocks, such as COVID-19. For this reason, business needs to adapt to changes as fast as they happen and ensure their preparedness for the future pandemics or crises to ensure business continuity. In conclusion, I have no doubt that the recommendations and solutions you will propose at the end of this conference will go a long way in making individual enterprises and business more resilient, adaptive, and competitive so as to navigate the global economy out of unprecedented effects of COVID-19 pandemic. It's now my honor and pleasure to declare this employers' annual conference, the 2020, officially open. Thank you and God bless.
Round of applause for the CS. Thank you so much for making time for us. Honorable Simon Chelugui, the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. I'm glad you clarified that you don't have all the jobs. People have been asking me to refer them to you, but it's clear now that you only have, the role is to create an enabling environment. And also the establishment of the Unemployment Relief Fund is something I'm sure most people will be looking forward to engage on that conversation. And so let's have this.
This is NTV.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain.
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice. Avoid the crowds and use your card. Pay with your ABSA debit card at any point of sale. Or better yet, shop online. Stay safe. Pata kila kitu upendacho kwa M-Pesa kupitia *334#.
Introducing Ushindi Cream Bar Soap. It foams well, is gentle on skin and hands, and cleans your clothes and dishes well too. Available in 1 kilogram and 800-gram bars and 175-gram tablets. Also available in all your favorite variants. Ushindi, a quality product from Pwani Oils.
NTV, turning on your world. The following program has been rated GE. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
Akili, Akili, this is Akili. She has a secret. Tell us, tell us. When the sun goes down, Akili goes to sleep, and she enters a world where all the animals speak. Akili, 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 Akili. But there is something strange about this magic land. The animals speak English which she doesn't understand, but if you help her out, we know it can be done. Akili can learn English and it will be fun. Akili, 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 Akili. I speak English! Yay! Akili has been busy today planting a seed with her father. I wonder what they will grow into. But now, it's time for bed. Wow! Your dad brought a little book.
It tells how to look after the seed you planted.
Ah!
Can you show us the first word?
Aha!
Well done. Akili, can you point to the next word?
Aha!
Yes, that's right. You are getting so good at reading, Akili. Oh, now Akili is falling asleep. Night-night. Look! It's La La Land!
Hello, friends! Little lion?
Ah, wow, wow. Rawr.
Hello, little lion!
Oh, Little Lion doesn't feel happy. What's wrong with Little Lion? Little Lion is hungry. So Sister Lion gave him some seeds.
Yuck.
But these seeds don't taste yummy. Maybe you have to do something to make them yummy.
I know!
What now?
Plant the seed in the ground and cover it with some soil. Good job, Akili.
Water!
Of course! You need to water the seed.
Mama!
Look!
Oh yes, this plant has fruits. What color are they, Akili?
Oh, red!
Yes, they are red. And what shape are they?